Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your curiosity, your source material, and really, well, dive in.
Yeah, get right into it.
So today we're tackling a question that, it feels ancient, doesn't it? Is the universe basically a predictable machine?
A giant clockwork ticking away predictably.
Exactly. Or is it? Well, something much more complex, maybe even surprising.
It's a fundamental question. And that initial pull towards the clockwork idea, it's strong.
It really is. That feeling of order, simple laws, if we just knew enough.
It offers a certain comfort, a sense of potential understanding, maybe control.
Totally understandable. But today, we've got some fascinating material. Excerpts from Chapter 19, The Fabric of the Cosmos, Nonlinearity and Complexity.
Ah, good stuff. That really challenges the simple clockwork view.
It does. So our mission, let's say, for this deep dive is to really unpack these ideas, nonlinearity, complexity, as they're laid out in the text.
And see what they tell us about how the universe actually works.
Right. And maybe find some of those aha moments along the way. Should be interesting.
Definitely. And what's cool is how the text starts by acknowledging that very human tendency, to look for the simple, predictable pattern first.
Yeah, it mentions the elegance, the cosmic cycles, things that do seem predictable.
It's like there's a rhythm, a script already written.
Exactly. And it even calls the idea that everything could be predicted if you knew the start. Amusing.
A gentle way of saying, maybe think again.
Pretty much. So that's our jumping off point. The text uses this term nonlinearity. It contrasts it with linear processes. Maybe you can sketch out that difference.
Sure. Okay. So linear is, well, it's straightforward, like the text cart example.
Right. The frictionless cart. Push a bit, it moves a bit. Push twice as hard.
It moves twice as fast. The output is directly proportional to the input. Clean, simple. A leads to B.
Okay, got it. But then the chapter brings in boiling water.
Ah, yes. And that's where it gets much more, real world, doesn't it?
It does. Tell us about that one.
Well, think about heating water on a stove.
Mm-hmm.
You turn up the heat, the temperature rises. Fairly steady, fairly proportional, for a while.
Linear, sort of.
Kind of. But then you reach a point, 100 degrees Celsius at sea level, right? And a tiny bit more heat doesn't just make it a tiny bit hotter.
No, it boils. It completely changes.
Exactly. A phase transition. A small input triggers a massive, disproportionate change in the system's behavior. It becomes steam. That jump. That's nonlinearity.
Wow. Okay. So a small cause can have a huge sudden effect, not proportional at all.
Precisely. And the text argues that this kind of behavior, this nonlinearity, it's not the exception in the universe. It might actually be closer to the rule.
Which changes how we need to think about things. And this feeds directly into the next big idea, right? Complex systems.
It does. Complex systems are basically systems with lots of interacting parts. Think ecosystems, economies, brains.
Or, like the text uses, the weather.
The weather is a classic example. So many parts: air pressure, temperature, wind, moisture.
All interacting.
And crucially, those interactions are often nonlinear. What happens with the temperature affects the pressure, which affects the wind, which feeds back. It's tangled.
Right. And the text emphasizes that you can't just understand the whole system by looking at each part in isolation.
No way. The whole becomes much, much more than the sum of its parts. New properties kind of emerge from the interactions themselves.
Like baking that cake you mentioned before the show, the ingredients don't tell you everything about the final cake.
Exactly that kind of idea. And with weather, this complexity and nonlinearity leads to that famous concept.
The butterfly effect. Always sounds so poetic.
It does, but it's a real consequence of these systems. Extreme sensitivity to initial conditions.
Meaning a tiny, tiny change at the start, like the flap of a butterfly's wings.
Could theoretically cascade through all those nonlinear interactions and lead to a vastly different outcome down the line. A hurricane instead of calm weather, weeks later on the other side of the world.
It seems unbelievable, but it highlights how prediction becomes incredibly difficult, if not impossible, in the long term for such systems.
Utterly impossible with perfect accuracy, yeah. And what's amazing, the text points out, is that even out of these complex, non-linear interactions, patterns do emerge.
Right, emergent patterns. Not random chaos, but structured forms.
Yeah, forms that seem to arise spontaneously from simple underlying rules being repeated over and over.
The text gives some beautiful examples, like how trees branch out.
Or the incredibly intricate, unique structure of every snowflake.
Our own nervous system branching, the swirls in flowing water.
Turbulent fluids, yeah. It's
Yeah.
order emerging from complexity, often in surprising ways.
And this leads us straight into fractals, which the chapter really highlights. Visually, they're just stunning.
They really are.
Okay, so the definition is self-similarity at different scales. What does that mean, practically speaking?
It means if you zoom in on a piece of a fractal shape, you'll often see a smaller version of the entire shape repeated. Zoom in again on a piece of that and you see it again.
Whoa, like nested patterns.
Exactly. The same basic structure reappears at finer and finer levels of detail. And often, these incredibly complex-looking patterns are generated by surprisingly simple mathematical rules, just applied iteratively, over and over.
It's kind of mind-bending. And the text connects this to the natural world so well.
It does. Think about a tree again. The way the main trunk branches and then those branches branch and maybe even the veins in a leaf follow a similar pattern.
Self-similarity across scales. Coastlines too, right? The jagged shape looks similar on a big map and when you look closely at the rocks.
Absolutely. Or Romanesco broccoli. That's an amazing natural fractal.
Oh yeah, the spiral cones repeating. It looks almost alien.
It does. And lightning bolts, river networks, bronchial tubes in our lungs. These fractal-like structures seem to be everywhere in nature.
Which, the text suggests, connects deeply with Russell's whole cosmic vision.
Yeah. Russell had this powerful intuition, didn't he? About universal principles repeating at all levels, microcosm mirroring the macrocosm.
As above, so below, kind of thing.
Right. And fractals give us a mathematical and visual language for that. Simple rules, scale invariance, the same pattern working, regardless of size generating complexity. The text calls it, what was it?
The cosmic rhythm is a fractal rhythm. I love that phrase.
Me too. It suggests this deep underlying unity and repetition woven into the universe's fabric. Maybe a hint at an interconnectedness we're only starting to grasp.
It definitely makes you think. So if we apply this non-linear perspective to Russell's universe, it means the interconnectedness he talks about isn't just a simple chain reaction.
No, not A causes B causes C in a straight line. It's more like a web or maybe a dance, like Zoran says later.
Right, where small things, little variations, feedback loops, they can have huge, unpredictable effects.
Exactly. It supports the idea of the universe not being some static blueprint that was set in stone at the beginning.
But more like
Alive.
dynamic, constantly unfolding.
Yes, a dynamic, ever-changing, self-organizing process, as the chapter puts it. It's actively creating novelty and structure all the time.
Which brings us to that Zoran quote you mentioned. It's worth hearing again.
Oh, definitely. It captures the shift in perspective so well.
It says, "You seek straight lines and simple causes in a universe that dances in spirals, unfolds in fractals, and laughs at your predictions."
Embrace the curve and find wonder in the unexpected. It's a call to appreciate the complexity, not just try to reduce everything.
It really is. And to help us internalize this, the chapter suggests a little exercise, the dragon trial.
Ah, yes, the thought experiment.
Can you explain that?
Sure, it's basically encouraging you, the listener, to go out and observe something in nature that shows complexity or fractal patterns.
Like a cloud or a coastline or even just like cracks in drying mud.
Right. And then to just sit with it and really contemplate. How could simple, repeated rules generate this intricate form?
It's an exercise in seeing the link between underlying simplicity and emergent complexity.
And it prompts you to ask yourself, does looking at the world this way change how you feel about it? Does it seem less like a machine, maybe more alive?
Yeah. Does it shift your perspective from mechanism to dynamism? It's a great way to connect these abstract ideas to direct experience.
It makes you wonder about other things, too. Are there processes in our lives, maybe things we think are linear, that actually have hidden non-linear dynamics, unexpected tipping points?
That's a fascinating thought. So the big takeaway here isn't that the universe is just random chaos. There are laws, elegant ones.
Absolutely. But the way those laws play out, through non-linearity and complex interactions,
leads to a universe that is fundamentally unpredictable in its fine detail. It's constantly generating novelty, emergent beauty.
The universe that keeps surprising us. The intricate future isn't written, it's constantly unfolding.
Okay, so let's wrap up our deep dive for today. We started with that simple, maybe comforting clockwork idea.
And we journeyed into a much richer picture, exploring non-linearity, how small causes can have big effects.
We looked at complex systems, where the interactions are everything and the whole is more than the sum of its parts.
And we marveled at emergence patterns, like fractals appearing from simple rules, showing self-similarity across scales.
Connecting it all back to a universe that feels Less like a predictable machine and more like a dynamic, evolving process.
Full of unexpected twists and turns, inherent unpredictability, but also incredible richness.
Which brings us to a final thought for you listening in. Building on that dragon trial idea.
How might really internalizing this nonlinear nature of things, how might that change how you approach challenges, maybe? Or just how you view things unfolding in your own life?
Yeah, could embracing the curve, like Zoran said, embracing the unexpected, could that actually open up a different way of seeing things? Maybe more wonder.
Recognizing that sometimes the path isn't straight and that complexity can be beautiful, not just confusing. The smartest things might matter immensely.
Something to ponder. Thank you so much for sharing the source material that sparked this discussion.
Yeah, great stuff. Always enjoy these explorations.
And thanks to you for joining us on this deep dive. We look forward to exploring more fascinating topics with you next time.